Now, Tuesdays are usually get stuff done types of days, or get other stuff done types of days. Admin, talking to other people, other forms of work that I need to do, or just getting house stuff done. But given I've got some other cool stuff going on for videos with something really cool coming up, and if I'm saying that it's really cool, then it must be cool, because how often do I collab with others? That's right, never. I thought I'd do this today, and then that way you've got more content. The "that's right, never" there sounded a little bit John Oliver-esque, didn't it? And I do actually have some other stuff, non-racing stuff, written that is basically, but we have John Oliver at home, that I do want to whack on another channel, but I don't know how to approach it yet. But anyway, since we've got some Formula 1 news happening within the last 24 hours, I thought I would sit down, talk about it, give some opinions and all that good stuff. The sort of opinion videos that you've come to know and love from this channel. At least I hope you like them. But it appears that Esteban Ocon has been sacked, to clickbait the hell out of all of this. Okay, sacked is not the operative word, because sacked would imply that he's gone already. Essentially, it's what happened to Jeremy Clarkson. They're not renewing the contract. But while Alpine has said there would be consequences following what happened at the Monaco Grand Prix a couple of weekends ago, the reason for him being left out in the cold this early in the season, well, it apparently had nothing to do with any of that. So, a recap. Ocon tried to throw his car up the inside of Pierre Gasly at Portier Corner, the corner before the tunnel at Monaco for those that aren't clued up on corner names, and ended up taking himself out of the race before the race was ultimately red flagged in the wake of the Perez, Magnussen, Hulkenberg pileup at Beau Rivage/Massenet, the climb up the hill after turn 1. Ocon's car was the only one of the two that was eliminated. It could have easily have been both cars, but somehow the other Alpine of Gasly got away with it. And even with the race under red flag, Ocon couldn't take the restart because the car couldn't be fixed in time. So 4 cars didn't take the restart, leaving 16 to go again. But you can see why a lot of people thought it would be the final straw for the Frenchman, because since he joined the F1 grid in 2016 with Manor, albeit only for a handful of races, this hasn't been the first time that he's made contact with another car that's, well, painted the same colour as his. In 2017, at Baku, he collided with Perez at the restart of the race. That same year, he wiped his front wing off, tagging Perez at the Belgian Grand Prix on the way down to Eau Rouge. In 2018, at Singapore, he and Perez collided again. In 2022 at Brazil, he forced Alonso wide at turn 4, and that caused Alonso to break traction and hit him. And in that same race, Alonso hit Ocon and lost his front wing. Then last year, in Australia, it was Gasly and Ocon that came a cropper during whatever that NASCAR-style carnage-laden restart of a race was. Now, it has to be said here that I've gone through and watched every single one of those collisions to see what was what, because some of them happened a few years ago, you might forget what happened. And after looking through every single one of those collisions that Sky Sports did a handy little compilation of, I actually think only 2 of those are Ocon's fault. The collision with Alonso, or forcing Alonso wide at turn 4 into Interlagos, and the one at Monaco this year. All the others, the other driver had a predominant part to play in that collision. As Martin Brundle would say, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. So if only 2 of those collisions are actually his fault, why are people up in arms about Ocon and his collisions with other drivers? Maybe it's because of who that driver is? Okay, let me try to explain. Certain drivers seem to have this thing where they can seemingly get away with stuff because of who they are. Leclerc, Hamilton, Verstappen, Norris, Mick Schumacher, basically lots of people like that driver, so if they do something dodgy, you're going to have legions of fans come out and defend them until the bitter end. Such is the way the fan bases are working in Formula 1 these days. You might even get other fan bases jumping in to defend those drivers. The popular kids in school, as it were. But for drivers like Ocon, the attitude is slightly different. If he's involved in a collision, it's always, oh, it's him that's at fault. He always crashes into other teammates. It's always his fault. But I guess there's also that incident that Ocon had with Verstappen about 5 years ago that kind of adds fuel to the fire, because Ocon did this thing to a incredibly popular driver, and that's just given people the ammunition to lob him to the wolves every time he does something. Another example of it is Mick Schumacher. If Kevin Magnussen or Nico Hulkenberg broke 2 cars in half in one season, people would be demanding those 2 lose their seats and somebody else should get it instead, because those 2 are a liability. But because it's a driver lots of people like, it's, well, oh, he's just doing his best. Now, This isn't a dig at the drivers, it's a dig at the attitudes that some people have based on who they like and don't like. Remember, just because somebody has criticised something a driver has done, it doesn't mean that they hate that driver. There's no need to be so sensitive. But where you can see things going wrong for Ocon is his performances versus every single one of the teammates he's had since 2017, his first full season. I've dug through the stats, but I'll go by full seasons given that he didn't do that many races in 2016. RacingYears.com is a great little website for all of this stuff if you ever want to do some comparisons for yourself. However, some of the stats don't make sense, at least to me anyway, because if you cross-reference them with Wikipedia's results sheets, it's a little bit all over the place. But it's still quite interesting because it gives you the percentages for the drivers. So this guy has a 48% success rate against this particular teammate in this particular year, and so on and so forth. If you want to go and have a look at it, I'll leave a link in the description. In 2017, Perez scored 100 points to Ocon's 87. In 2018, Perez had 62 points and Ocon 49, but Perez finished 8th and Ocon was 12th, with Ocon not beating Perez on track at all over the 2018 season. In 2019, he wasn't on the grid, but he was back for 2020 and got utterly demolished by Ricciardo. In 2021, he was joined by Alonso and they were quite evenly matched, with Ocon even taking a win at the chaotic Hungarian Grand Prix. In 2022, Ocon actually beat Alonso over the course of the season, but for 2023, he was beaten by new teammate Gasly. So in all, since 2017, Ocon has only beaten his teammate once, 2022 against Alonso, which actually that's a pretty good achievement. You've beaten Fernando Alonso, that's not an easy thing to do, but you've had 7 seasons in Formula 1 and you've only beaten one of your teammates. People are going to start looking at that. So that can explain some criticism. With teams wanting the returns on the constructors' payouts, the teammates need to be regularly beating each other and getting the maximum returns on the points, finishing close together if need be. If one driver is miles ahead, then they're going to be wondering why this other guy is hanging around, and that might be why Alpine has now taken the decision to go, we might need to think about somebody else getting in here, in French. Now Alpine, much like the other teams, has got drivers waiting in the wings. Jack Doohan is currently the favourite to come in and replace Ocon as he steps up through the career ladder, and would add to the 2 existing Australian drivers on the grid, assuming that Ricciardo is still around next year as he too is under fire at the minute, being beaten by Tsunoda. Doohan was 3rd in Formula 2 last year, so he has the experience required. Meanwhile, it's also up in the air where Ocon could go after this season. Sky Sports says the most likely destination is Haas, but with drivers like Ollie Behrman also in contention because of his Ferrari connections and Ferrari's connections with Haas, it might end up being something that doesn't happen. It will depend on whether Magnussen stays at the team. There's also Audi that might become a team that he drives for, but with them already signing up Hülkenberg for 2026, it will then depend on what they do next. Does Audi keep Bottas for 2025 and beyond, Zhou for 2025 and beyond, or does Sainz slot in there for 2026 as per the rumours? But at the same time, Gasly is also out of contract, but the rumours are that Alpine wants to lock Gasly in for a bit longer. But at the same time, there's Mick Schumacher, currently with the World Endurance Team, Alpine's World Endurance Team that is, so there are fans out there hoping that they keep neither of the 2 French drivers on and instead go for Mick and Jack, both sons of ex-racers too, as Jack Doohan is the son of Mick Doohan, the 500cc motorcycle racer and 5-time champion. Not only are they both sons of racers, they're both sons of people called Michael. That'll be something the stats people try to shoehorn into something. So what if there are no drives in Formula 1? Well, there is Alpine's World Endurance Programme. They are racing the World Endurance Championship. They're going to Le Mans this year. Mick's actually racing at Le Mans this year, so maybe a straight swap. Ocon for Mick. I mean, that would keep the fans happy at least because they want Mick back in because son of Schumacher, rose-tinted goggles, nostalgia, etc, etc, etc. But there is also Formula E, and maybe that's something to look into once Formula E has its silly season. If it does have a silly season, I don't know, I haven't watched Formula E this year because it's behind another bastard paywall. But at the same time, all of this adds to the continuous shuffling around that is currently happening at Enstone. The team is currently 9th in the constructors' standings, having finished 4th in 2022 and 6th in 2023, and Alpine says that it is committed to getting back to the front of the grid. On the 4th of March 2024, Alpine announced that Joe Burnell would be the new technical director, David Wheater would be the technical director of aerodynamics, and Kieran Pilbeam would be the technical director of performance. They would, in turn, report to team principal Bruno Famin, or Faman, I think that's how it's pronounced, and this was done with immediate effect. Now, since the restructuring, things have looked up slightly for the team, with Ocon scoring at Miami and Gasly getting a point in Monaco, but things still do look a tiny bit off. The only thing that Ocon can do now is basically become a good advert for himself, score as much as possible, help Alpine out while he still can, and maybe do enough to impress another team. But with so many other drivers waiting to come in or back, depending on who you like and stuff, that might be tricky. Because you've also got Carlos Sainz out of a ride at the end of the year because Hamilton's coming in to replace him at Ferrari, and Sainz is going to be impressing people. And because Sainz is a better driver than Ocon, I mean, that's my opinion, you can agree or disagree at your leisure, people are going to want to take a good look at Sainz more than Ocon because Sainz can deliver. It does say something though, because Ocon is managed in part by Toto Wolff, and if Toto isn't thinking replace Hamilton with Ocon, then that might be quite telling. Maybe because he's that intent on replacing Hamilton with Verstappen, I don't know. And Sky Sports did say that if it was going to happen, it would have probably happened by now, that once Hamilton had said, right, I'm off to Ferrari, that they said, okay, well, I'm bringing in my guy. Hey, here's Esteban Ocon, he's going to drive for Mercedes next year. And Ocon was once a development driver and test driver and simulator driver, whatever you want to call him, for Mercedes in that year off he had in 2019. But, as a wise man once said, anything can happen in Formula 1, and it usually does. So maybe if Ocon drives like a god for the rest of the year, he might end up in that Mercedes seat alongside Russell? So will it be enough for Ocon to be that advert for himself and get himself into a good seat or ish seat for 2025 and beyond? I don't know, because like I say, Sainz is hovering around, and where Sainz goes might depend on what happens to Ocon, but answers on a postcard down in the comments, I guess. So then, this has been a thing that's happened in the world of Formula 1 recently, and this has been my opinion on that thing. I would do the like this thing, but that thing has run its course for a bit, so I won't bother. I might bring it back at a certain point. But for real though, if you did think I made some good points in this video, then do like this video so I know I did a good job and it got you thinking. And for more stuff from this channel, whether that's the deep dives through the motorsport history books or the opinion pieces like the one you've just watched and or listened to, then the subscribe button is there, along with links in the description to Discord and socials if you want to connect at that level. Also, down in the description is Patreon, and a massive thanks to the people on your screen that support via that medium, and if you want to join in with supporting at a more personal level, then the link is where I just said it was. There's also the F1 store link in the description where I get a kickback on stuff that you buy, and there's also Mixed Garage, which will do the same thing if you buy some bits for your car. Oh, and there's super thanks and memberships if that's more your thing. So with all that out of the way, I've been Millward. Have a great day wherever you are, and goodbye.